Okay, hi everyone, I'm Amelia Newcomb. Thank you for watching today. We're talking about the transition to canter today. This is something that I think is really hard for a lot of riders and a lot of horses, and part of the reason for that is because you're going from a 2-beat trot into a 3-beat canter, and so in that transition from trot to canter, the horse has to kind of organize a lot their legs in order to make that transition. So before we get started with the riding part, it's important to a little bit understand the mechanics of the canter. And the canter has a left lead and a right lead. So the walk and the trot are just, you don't have a left or a right lead walk and trot. But in the canter, you have a left lead canter and you have a right lead canter. The canter is the only naturally bent gait of the horse. So in the canter, the horse has a little bit of a natural bend in their body because they have a left lead and a right lead. In the left lead canter, the left front and the left hind leg are in front of the right front and the right hind leg. And in the right lead canter, the right front and the right hind leg are in front of the left-sided legs. So because of that, your body position needs to indicate what lead you want the horse to be on. If I'm just trotting straight down the rail or walking straight down the rail, my body's completely straight. So I should have even weight in both seat bones. My knees should be level and my feet should be level. Now if I'm cantering down the rail, I should have a little bit more weight in my left seat bone. My left leg should be at the girth and my right leg should be behind my left leg. So your leg position needs to indicate which lead you're on. So for left lead canter, so if I'm doing left lead canter, my outside leg here, if this is my leg at the girth, my outside leg is going to be slightly behind the girth to indicate for the left lead canter. Now if you feel what this does to your hips, when you put your outside leg a little bit back, is it puts more weight on your inside seat bone. And that's what you want for the left lead canter, to have a little more weight on the inside seat bone so that your weight is over the horse's inside hind leg. Now it's important that when your leg is a little back like this, it shouldn't be up here. So your leg should not be back on the corner of the saddle pad. That's too far back. And also your leg you shouldn't have to have that leg jammed on the horse's side. You shouldn't have your spur in them the whole time, but your leg should be a little bit back in position. And the reason that this leg position is important is for when you start teaching your horse the flying changes. When you think of horses that do tempi changes, like 3 tempis or 4 tempis, the way that the horse knows when to change leads is by your leg position going from back to forward. So you're doing kind of scissor legs. For a flying change, your outside leg comes forward at the same time as your new outside leg goes back. So that's why that's important. So let's get into the riding part of how to ask for the canter. I'm going to start off with just trot, canter, trot transitions. So the first thing before you ask for canter is you need to get a good trot. And so what defines a good trot is a trot where your horse is self-going. So I need to be able to have my horse just staying at this nice steady trot without me doing too much. And this horse a little bit looks for me to be constantly driving and kicking him. Now the problem with that is that if you're already shouting at your horse, if you're already kicking and driving and whipping it just to keep them trotting, they're never going to be able to hear the aid for the canter. So you need to have a trot where your horse is just self-going. So where my horse is just self-going in the trot. Now when I ask for the canter, I a little bit half halt the outside rein and think trot, 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 and canter. So it's important the timing of that canter aid. You want to ask for the canter when the outside front leg is on the ground so that it can push off and into the canter. And like I said before, it's really important that your horse is self-going in the trot before you ask for the canter. So let me show you again. Trot, 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 watch my outside leg canter. Boy. And that time he was already knowing that I was going to ask for the canter. So one thing that you also have to think about is if you're going on a circle to the left, your inside leg is at the girth and your outside leg is a little bit behind the girth. So if I'm trotting, my outside leg is already a little behind the girth. Hey, I didn't ask for that. And then that's the other thing, like there, he started to just anticipate since I asked him twice for canter in the same spot, then he was already gonna pick up the canter without me asking, and I don't want that. So I have inner leg at the girth, outer leg a little behind the girth, and then for the canter, I close my outside leg behind the girth, I put the weight on my inside seat bone, and my horse lifts into the canter. So if you have an aid that doesn't work, so let's say you're trotting along and you get ready to pick up, no, see now he's anticipating, so I don't want that. He has to wait for me to ask him to canter. So I'm trotting along, he needs to be pushing, he needs to be on the circle. Now if when I ask my horse to canter, he just goes faster in the trot like this and puts his head up and doesn't canter, like once he's so trotting this big and strung out, it's going to be hard to get him into the canter. So in this case, what I need to do is I need to stop asking for the canter. I need to organize him a little rounder, a little smaller in the trot, and then pick up that canter aid. And I'm really thinking now that I'm cantering that I'm maintaining my leg position. So my outside leg is a little behind the girth and my inside leg is at the girth. If my outside leg slides forward and my outside leg is up here, that's going to be a sign to tell my horse to trot. So don't do that unless you want your horse to actually trot. Boy. So some of the most common things I see happen is that in the canter transition, the biggest one is just that the horse doesn't listen. So people will be trotting around and they'll ask for canter and nothing will happen. So if that's the case and you've asked for canter and nothing happens, usually what I do is I tell people to give their horse a little kick, like a little kick with both legs, and just say, hey, you know, listen up, like something's coming. And then settle the trot back down and then ask for the canter. Because sometimes, especially if you've been trotting around for a long time and all of a sudden you want to ask your horse to canter, they don't hear that aid. So sometimes you need to make a quick little leg correction and just say, hey, listen up, something's coming, and then pick up the canter. So that's the solution for that problem. Now, one of the other problems that people say happens is that when they ask for the canter, the horse comes above the bit. So they ask for canter and the horse kind of just throws their head up like this and runs into the canter like that was a mess. So you saw, because he wasn't round enough before I asked for the canter, that was better. But because he wasn't round enough before I asked for the canter, it was a mess. He ran forward, his head came up. It was pretty much just a disaster. So if your horse is not staying round in the transition, make him a little extra round before the transition. So like here, I might make him a little lower. Hey, keep going. A little lower and a little rounder. And then really prioritize him staying around in that transition. Good boy. Good boy. And again, as I'm cantering here, inside seat bone down, inside heel down, outside leg slightly behind the girth for my right lead canter. Boy. Now for the walk canter, it's kind of the same principle. Is if I'm going to canter from the walk, first of all, I need my horse to be in front of the leg at the walk. That's why I kicked him there, because he was just not in front of my leg. And I need to have a self-going horse at the walk. If I'm having to kick and squeeze and pull on the reins to get him to stay round at the walk, he's never going to hear my aid for canter. So I need to have a horse that's just nicely walking forward, that's nicely staying on the bit, which without too much constant input from me. Since I'm on the circle, my outside leg is just slightly behind the girth, but when I ask for canter, my outside leg goes even more behind the girth, and I close my outside leg behind the girth and my inside leg at the girth to ask for that canter transition. So let me show you that again. So I'm walking. Now I'm going to outside leg back, inner leg at the girth. And it's kind of the feeling in the walk canter that I kind of scoop him and lift him up with my legs into that canter transition. Good boy. So same thing to the left. I'm first, before I ask for a left lead canter, I have to make sure that my horse is bending left. Like we talked about, the canter has 2 leads. So before you ask for left lead canter, your horse needs to be positioned a little to the left. My left leg is at the girth, my right leg is a little behind the girth, even before I ask for the canter. But the difference when I ask for the canter is my outside leg goes a little more back and on, and my inside leg also closes. So let me show you where you can see that in the camera. So my outside leg slightly back, but when I ask for canter, you see it close right there, and my inside leg also closes, and the horse lifts up to the canter. And your goal with these transitions is that you are working towards getting more invisible aid. So you always want as light and as subtle and as soft of an aid as possible. If you have to kick and whip and pull and cluck to get your horse to canter, that's not very effective and harmonious, and the judge isn't going to like it. Boy, Ozzy. So I hope that that gives you guys some tips to help you work on your canter transition, and let me know in the comments what other problems you're having in your transition. Maybe I can make a video and help you out. All right, don't forget to subscribe and sign up for my email list below. Thanks for watching.